It's a bright and sunny Saturday afternoon, the kind that draws families to the city zoo. The air is filled with the excited chatter of children running from exhibit to exhibit, parents trailing behind with strollers and snacks. The zoo is alive with energy, giraffes lazily munching on leaves, monkeys swinging from trees, and the faint roar of a lion echoing from the distance. It's the perfect day for an outing, or so it seems. In the middle of this bustling scene, Andrew sits quietly on a bench near the playground, soaking in the serenity of nature. He's an elementary school teacher in his early 30s, tall, with a calm demeanor. Dressed casually in a plain t-shirt and jeans, Andrew blends into the crowd, just another visitor at the zoo. He's holding a book on wildlife conservation, a passion of his that he hopes to inspire in his students. Andrew watches the children playing in the nearby park, not out of any sense of curiosity, but more out of habit as a teacher. He smiles to himself, remembering the enthusiasm his students have for their weekly nature walks. Kids are kids, no matter where you are, he thinks, enjoying the peaceful moment. Meanwhile, across the park, Karen is struggling to keep up with her two young children. Emily, her 8-year-old daughter, and Jacob, her 5-year-old son, are running wild, excited by the lions they've just seen. Karen, in her late 40s, is dressed in expensive, fashionable clothes, a designer handbag slung over her shoulder, and oversized sunglasses perched on her head. She's juggling her phone in one hand, furiously texting, while trying to keep her eyes on the kids. Karen is already on edge. Her husband had to work that Saturday, leaving her alone to manage the day's zoo trip. The constant buzzing of her phone is just adding to her stress, and as she tries to take a breath and enjoy the moment, she glances over to where her children are playing. That's when she notices Andrew. He's sitting near the edge of the playground, his eyes seemingly focused on her kids. Her brow furrows slightly and her heart begins to race. She watches him for a moment longer, her mind racing. Why is he just sitting there, staring, she thinks. What's his deal? Her suspicions deepen as Emily runs closer to Andrew's bench, laughing as Jacob chases her. Andrew smiles softly, lost in his own thoughts, but Karen sees something entirely different. She tightens her grip on her phone, a rising sense of unease creeping up her spine. Her pulse quickens, and she starts to imagine the worst. The headlines flash in her mind: man caught lurking near playground. Strangers watching kids. She shakes her head, trying to dismiss the thoughts, but they keep creeping back. I need to do something, she whispers to herself. Karen's concern morphs into fear, and fear quickly turns into anger. She straightens her posture, her lips pursed into a thin line, and begins marching toward Andrew. As she approaches, her voice is sharp, cutting through the playground's noise. Excuse me, she calls out, her tone confrontational. What exactly are you doing here? Andrew looks up from his book, surprised by the sudden accusation. His brow furrows slightly, confused. Sorry, what he asks, trying to understand why this stranger is yelling at him. I saw you. You've been sitting here, staring at my kids, Karen snaps, crossing her arms tightly over her chest. Her voice is growing louder, attracting the attention of a few nearby parents. Why are you sitting here by the playground? Andrew blinks, completely caught off guard. I'm just reading my book, he says slowly, holding up the wildlife book as if it's evidence. I'm not. I don't care what you're reading, Karen interrupts, her eyes narrowing. Why are you sitting here alone near a bunch of kids? It's creepy. Andrew opens his mouth to respond but hesitates. He's trying to stay calm, but the tension in the air is palpable. His mind races as he tries to make sense of the situation. Is she really accusing him of what exactly? Look, Ma, Andrew begins, keeping his voice even. I'm just here to enjoy the zoo, same as everyone else. I'm not bothering anyone. But Karen's not hearing it. Her paranoia is in full swing, and now a few passersby have stopped to watch the confrontation. A security guard nearby takes notice and starts heading in their direction, his hand resting on his radio. I'm not comfortable with you just sitting here, watching my kids, Karen says, her voice rising in pitch. I don't know what you're up to, but I don't like it. Andrew feels the frustration building inside him. He glances around, noticing the growing number of people staring, phones out, recording. He knows this situation could get out of hand very quickly. He takes a deep breath, trying to keep his composure. Mom, I promise you, I'm not doing anything wrong, Andrew says, his voice steady but strained. I'm just sitting here reading. That's all. Before Karen can respond, the security guard arrives. "Is there a problem here?" the guard asks, looking between Karen and Andrew. "Yes, there is," Karen says, her voice filled with indignation. "This man has been sitting here watching my kids. I think he's up to something." Andrew stands up, his heart pounding. He knows how this looks, how quickly things can escalate. He holds up his hands, trying to de-escalate the situation. "I'm just reading, I swear. I haven't done anything." The guard eyes Andrew for a moment, then turns to Karen. Did you actually see him do anything inappropriate?" Karen falters for a moment. "Well, no, but I feel uncomfortable. He's just been sitting there, watching." The guard sighs, clearly unsure of how to handle the situation. Andrew feels the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He knows how quickly things like this can spiral out of control, and it's taking everything in him to stay calm. And then, out of nowhere, the distant roar of a lion cuts through the air. The sound of the lion's roar cuts through the tense atmosphere, startling everyone around the playground. For a moment, both Karen and Andrew freeze, the heated confrontation interrupted by something far more alarming. The crowd around them seems to sense it too. There's something different about this roar. It's louder, more primal, and it sends a ripple of fear through the zoo. Karen's phone slips from her hand as she turns her head toward the direction of the sound. She looks back at Andrew for a split second, then at the security guard, unsure of what's happening. The guard, who had been caught in the middle of their argument, suddenly gets a call on his radio. His eyes widen, and he steps back from the scene, pressing the radio closer to his ear. "Excuse me, I need to check something," he mutters quickly, already rushing off in the direction of the lion enclosure. The uneasy silence that follows is quickly shattered by the high-pitched scream of a child. Everyone's attention shifts to the playground, where Karen's daughter Emily and her son Jacob are still playing. The parents around them start grabbing their kids, pulling them close, and scanning the area nervously. Andrew instinctively steps forward, his protective instincts kicking in. He doesn't know exactly what's going on, but he can feel the energy shift from awkward tension to real danger. The zoo speakers crackle to life, and an urgent voice blares through the intercom. "Attention zoo visitors, please remain calm and move toward the nearest exit in an orderly fashion. Zoo staff are handling an incident in the lion enclosure. Please do not panic." But the message does little to calm the crowd. People start moving quickly, herding their children away from the play area, their voices filled with fear and confusion. The once peaceful zoo has transformed into a scene of panic in mere seconds. Karen's hands are shaking as she tries to spot her kids amidst the moving crowd. "Emily, Jacob," she screams, her voice cracking with desperation. "Come here now." Emily and Jacob, however, are still at the far edge of the playground, too caught up in their game to realize what's happening. They're laughing, their voices carrying through the chaos, oblivious to the panic spreading around them. Without thinking, Karen takes a step toward them, but her legs feel like lead. The fear that had fueled her confrontation with Andrew is nothing compared to the terror she feels now. Her breath comes in short, sharp bursts as she struggles to focus on her kids, her motherly instinct battling with the overwhelming sense of helplessness. Andrew's eyes flick to Karen, then back to the playground. He can see the situation unfolding in a way that Karen can't. The lion's roar had come from dangerously close by, and now there's movement at the edge of the trees near the enclosure. He can't make out what it is, but something is wrong. The security guard hadn't even had time to explain before rushing off. He turns back to Karen, her face pale, and then looks toward the playground where Emily and Jacob still stand, completely unaware of the danger. Andrew says quickly, his voice urgent but calm. "You need to get out of here. I'll get your kids." Karen stares at him in disbelief. "What? No, I." But Andrew doesn't wait for her response. Without hesitation, he darts toward the playground, weaving through the crowd of panicking parents and children. Karen stands frozen for a moment, her mind racing, unable to process what's happening. She wants to chase after him, but her legs won't move. "Emily." Andrew calls out as he approaches the playground. The kids turn at the sound of his voice, finally noticing the chaos around them. Their smiles fade as they see the fear in the eyes of the adults around them. "Come on, we've got to go," Andrew urges, his tone more insistent now. Emily hesitates, clutching her little brother's hand, unsure of what to do. She looks back toward her mother, who is still standing frozen at the edge of the crowd, her hands covering her mouth. Andrew reaches out to them, and after a split second of hesitation, Emily takes his hand. Jacob clings to his sister's arm as Andrew begins to lead them away from the playground. His heart is pounding in his chest, not from fear for himself, but for these kids, for the danger that's closing in. And then, just as they start to move, a second roar echoes through the zoo, this one much closer. Andrew glances over his shoulder, and his worst fear is confirmed. Emerging from the trees, not more than 100 yards away, is one of the lions. It's moving slowly, its large, powerful body swaying with each step as it prowls closer to the playground. Its eyes are fixed on the fleeing crowd, and its muscles ripple under its tawny coat, every inch a predator on the hunt. The panic in the zoo reaches a fever pitch. People are screaming now, running in every direction, some knocking over strollers and pushing past others in their frantic rush to escape. But for Andrew, everything slows down. His mind narrows to one singular focus: getting these kids to safety. He grips Emily's hand tighter, urging her to move faster. "Come on, we've got to go," he says again, his voice strained but steady. Jacob starts to cry, his small legs struggling to keep up with Andrew's pace. Andrew scoops him up with his free arm, holding him close as he pushes through the crowd, heading toward the nearest exit. Behind them, the lion roars again, its guttural sound vibrating through the air. Andrew can feel the ground tremble beneath his feet with each step the lion takes, but he doesn't look back. He knows that slowing down, even for a moment, could mean the difference between life and death. The zoo staff are still far away, their shouts and the crackle of their radios barely audible over the chaos. It's up to Andrew now, and he knows it. As they near the exit, Andrew can see the security team moving toward the lion, armed with tranquilizer guns. But the lion is still too close, too fast. He takes one last glance behind him as they reach the exit gate, just in time to see the lion lunge forward, its powerful body surging toward the playground. The air in the zoo has settled, but the tension from the lion's escape still lingers in every corner. Staff are quickly guiding the remaining visitors toward the exits, urging them to leave as quickly as possible while zoo security handles the aftermath. Andrew, his heart finally starting to slow, makes his way toward a quieter part of the zoo, away from the chaos of the main paths. He feels the adrenaline fading, replaced by exhaustion and a deep sense of unease. Despite Karen's apology, Andrew knows that what happened earlier wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a confrontation born from something deeper, something that stings more than the physical exhaustion he feels now. He walks past the empty animal enclosures, his thoughts swirling. As Andrew rounds a corner, heading toward a shaded bench near the bird sanctuary, he overhears fragments of conversations from lingering zoo-goers. A few are still talking about the lion, but others are discussing something else entirely: the video. The one that bystanders captured of Karen accusing him of suspicious behavior. He catches snippets of their words: "That guy was just sitting there. She went off on him. Did you see how calm he was?" Andrew's stomach tightens. He had noticed the phones pointed at him during the confrontation, but with everything that happened after, it had slipped his mind. Now the realization hits him. People saw what happened, likely recorded every second of it. And now those videos are making their way online, into the hands of people who weren't there, who don't know the whole story. He sits down on the bench, his body heavy with the weight of the day. Andrew pulls out his phone, hesitating for a moment before opening his social media. He's already getting notifications, people tagging him, sending messages, sharing posts. His name is being mentioned in dozens of comments, some defending him, others casting judgment before even knowing the full situation. Andrew closes the app, sighing deeply. He knew this could happen. In today's world, moments like these don't stay private for long. What bothers him most, though, isn't just the fact that he's at the center of this viral moment, it's the reason why it happened in the first place. Karen had made assumptions about him, assumptions based on nothing more than his presence and the color of his skin. He leans back on the bench, letting the tension in his muscles release as he stares up at the canopy of trees above. In his heart, Andrew had always known that this kind of situation could happen to him. He had read about it, seen it on the news, and heard stories from friends. But experiencing it firsthand, a simple day at the zoo turning into an accusation, a public scene, and now a viral video, is a new kind of weight. Andrew closes his eyes, the events replaying in his mind. The way Karen had looked at him, the disbelief in her voice, the way she assumed the worst without ever trying to understand who he was or what he was doing. He tries to shake it off, but the sting of it lingers. What would have happened if the lion hadn't escaped? Would zoo security have escorted him out? Would the police have been called? The questions swirl in his head, unanswered, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. Andrew feels the familiar ache in his chest, a combination of frustration and exhaustion that comes from knowing that, no matter how calm or rational he remained, the outcome could have been very different. As he sits there, lost in thought, a voice breaks through the quiet. Andrew. He opens his eyes and turns to see Karen standing a few feet away. She's holding her two children's hands, her face still pale from the events of earlier. Her eyes are red, and it's clear she's been crying. The kids look tired, their faces stained with the remnants of dried tears. For a moment, neither of them speaks. There's an awkward silence between them, one heavy with the weight of everything that's happened. Finally, Karen takes a hesitant step forward. Can I sit down?" she asks, her voice soft, almost timid. Andrew nods, scooting over slightly to make room on the bench. Karen sits down beside him, her children staying close by her side. She fidgets with her hands for a moment, clearly searching for the right words. I didn't know what else to do," Karen starts, her voice trembling. I panicked. I thought a lot of things, and none of them were right." Andrew stays silent, letting her speak. He can sense her regret, but he's not sure if it's enough to ease the sting of what happened. Karen glances at him, her eyes filled with guilt. "I don't even know how to explain it. I just saw you, sitting there, and I thought the worst. It wasn't fair, it wasn't right, and I'm sorry." Her words hang in the air between them, heavy with the weight of an apology that doesn't quite fix everything. Andrew finally turns to look at her, his expression calm but guarded. "I understand you were scared," Andrew says, his voice measured. "But that doesn't make what happened okay. You saw me sitting there, minding my own business, and you assumed I was a threat. You didn't ask questions. You didn't try to understand. You just reacted." Karen's face crumples slightly, her guilt deepening. I know. I don't even know why I did it. I guess I've just been so on edge lately. There's so much going on in the world, and I let my fear take over." Andrew nods, but his face remains serious. "That fear, though, it's the kind of fear that gets people like me in trouble. Sometimes worse. What if I hadn't been able to stay calm? What if I had reacted differently? You know how these things go." Karen lowers her head, tears welling in her eyes again. "You're right," she whispers. "I don't know how to make it right, but I am truly deeply sorry. You saved my kids' lives today, and I treated you like a criminal. I don't know how to thank you." Andrew takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. He's heard apologies like this before, people who, in the heat of the moment, realize they were wrong, but only after the damage is done. He looks at Karen's children, still clutching her hands, their faces innocent and unaware of the complexity of the situation. "Look," Andrew says finally, his voice softening. "What's done is done. You apologized, and I accept that. But I need you to understand that this isn't just about what happened today. It's about a bigger problem. This kind of fear. It's dangerous." Karen nods slowly, wiping away her tears. "I do understand," she says. "And I promise, I'll do better. I'll teach my kids to do better. I'll be more aware." Andrew watches her for a moment, sensing the sincerity in her words. It's a start. A small step in the right direction. He stands up from the bench, stretching his tired limbs. "I appreciate that," he says. "But I also think it's important that you don't just move on from this. Think about it. Talk about it. Teach your kids. We can all do better." Karen looks up at him, gratitude and remorse written across her face. "I will, I promise." Andrew nods, offering a small, tired smile. Without another word, he turns and walks away, leaving Karen sitting on the bench with her children, the weight of her actions hanging heavy in the air. Andrew walks away from the bench, leaving Karen with her children, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on him. His feet move instinctively toward the quieter parts of the zoo, away from the bustling crowds that have been redirected toward the exits. He needs space, a moment to process everything that's happened. As he makes his way down a narrow path toward the aviary, he's struck by the contrast of the peace around him compared to the chaos just moments ago. The distant calls of birds fill the air, and the gentle rustle of the leaves in the trees offers a reprieve from the emotional storm he's been through. But despite the serenity around him, Andrew's mind is far from calm. He pulls out his phone again, scrolling through the flood of notifications. More comments, more shares, more people weighing in on the video. He doesn't even have to open the links to know what they say. The narrative is already forming Karen, a white woman, accusing a black man of wrongdoing in a public place. The familiar storyline playing out again, this time with Andrew in the center. Andrew lets out a frustrated sigh. It's not that he didn't expect this, he knows how quickly these things spread. But the reality of it hits harder than he thought. People who weren't there, who don't know him or the full story, are already making judgments. Some defend him, calling out Karen's racism. Others ask questions like, what was he really doing? It's infuriating how fast assumptions are made, how quickly sides are taken. As he pockets his phone, he hears footsteps approaching from behind. Andrew tenses for a moment, unsure of who it might be, but when he turns, he's relieved to see a familiar face. David, a close friend and fellow teacher, walks up to him, his face filled with concern. David had planned to meet Andrew at the zoo later that day, but now it's clear he's heard about what happened. "Hey man," David says, his voice quiet but steady. "I saw the video." Andrew nods, his jaw tightening. "Yeah, I figured you might." David shakes his head, frustration flickering in his eyes. "I can't believe that happened. You were just sitting there reading, and she just went off like that." Andrew shrugs, his expression tired. "It happens, you know? Not the first time I've been accused of something I didn't do. But this time, I don't know, man, it feels different, bigger." David sits down on a nearby bench, motioning for Andrew to join him. "I get it. I mean, it's not just about what she did, it's about everything that comes with it. The assumptions, the bias, the fact that she didn't even give you a chance to explain yourself." Andrew sits down next to him, nodding slowly. "Yeah, and now it's everywhere. People are already making judgments. Some people are defending me, sure, but others, they don't care. They'll take what they saw in the video and run with it. And I'm just supposed to deal with it." David leans back, his face thoughtful. "You shouldn't have to. It's messed up, Andrew. But you know how this goes, people will take one look at a headline or a video clip, and that's it. They've already decided what happened." Andrew runs a hand through his hair, the frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "It's just exhausting, man. Always having to prove that I'm not a threat, that I'm just here like everyone else trying to live my life. And even when I stay calm, even when I do everything right, it doesn't matter. Someone like her sees me, and that's enough." David lets out a deep breath. "It's not fair. And it shouldn't be on you to fix her ignorance. But you did more than most people would have done today. You saved her kids. That's something she'll never forget." Andrew shrugs, his emotions swirling. "I wasn't thinking about her when I ran toward them. I was just thinking about those kids. They didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of all this." David nods, understanding. "Of course. You did the right thing. You always do." Andrew appreciates the words, but they don't ease the knot in his chest. He knows David means well, but the reality is more complicated. He did the right thing, but it came at a cost. The video, the accusations, the viral attention, it all feels like a punishment for simply existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. They sit in silence for a moment, both of them processing the weight of the day. The sounds of the zoo, the birds, the distant hum of the crowd seem muted now, the peace shattered by the events that unfolded. "I don't know what's next," Andrew says after a long pause. "I mean, what do I even do? People are going to keep talking about this, keep dissecting what happened. And I'm just tired." David looks over at him, his expression serious. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. Take a breath, man. You went through a lot today, more than anyone should have to deal with. Just take it one step at a time." Andrew nods, but his mind is still racing. He knows that when he leaves the zoo, the real world will still be waiting for him. The video will still be circulating. The comments will keep coming. and no matter what, he'll have to face the reality of how quickly his life was turned upside down. David pats him on the back, offering a small, supportive smile. We'll figure it out. You've got people in your corner. Andrew returns the smile, though it doesn't reach his eyes. Thanks, man, I appreciate it. They sit together in silence for a while longer, watching as the sun begins to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the zoo. The peaceful sounds of the birds provide a momentary escape from the harshness of reality, but Andrew knows that soon he'll have to face it all again. As they get up to leave, Andrew's phone buzzes once more. He glances down at the screen and sees a notification from a news outlet. A local reporter has picked up the story, and the headline reads, "Zoo hero or wrongly accused?" Viral video sparks debate. Andrew sighs, slipping the phone back into his pocket. He's not ready to face the world's opinions just yet. For now, he just wants to breathe. As the sun begins to set over the city, casting long golden shadows across the zoo, Andrew finally makes his way toward the parking lot. His body is heavy with exhaustion, both physical and emotional, but he feels a quiet determination settling over him. The chaos of the day is finally behind him, but the real consequences are just beginning to take shape. His phone continues to buzz with notifications, messages from friends, news alerts, and strangers weighing in on the viral video. Andrew ignores them for now. He's not ready to engage with the storm brewing online. As he reaches the parking lot, he spots Karen and her children standing by her car. She sees him approaching and waves awkwardly, her face still flushed with emotion. Her children, Emily and Jacob, cling to her legs, their earlier fear replaced by a quiet exhaustion. Karen takes a deep breath and steps forward as Andrew nears. "Andrew, wait," she calls out, her voice shaking slightly. Andrew stops, his eyes meeting hers. There's a silence between them that feels heavy, filled with unspoken thoughts and emotions. Karen fidgets with her keys, clearly struggling to find the right words. I need you to know how sorry I am," she says, her voice cracking. "I know I've already apologized, but it doesn't feel like enough. What I did, the way I reacted, it was wrong. It wasn't fair to you, and you still saved my kids." Andrew listens, his expression calm but unreadable. He's heard this apology before, but he can see that Karen is grappling with something deeper now. Her fear, her bias, it's all laid bare in this moment, and she's confronting it in a way that she probably never thought she would have to. "I didn't see you for who you really are," Karen continues, her eyes filling with tears. "I saw a threat, and I can't even tell you why, because it doesn't make sense. I'm ashamed of myself." Andrew sighs, rubbing the back of his neck. He's tired of explaining, tired of educating, tired of dealing with moments like this. But something in Karen's voice stops him from brushing her off. He knows she's not the first person to make this mistake, and she won't be the last. But if there's one thing he's learned as a teacher, it's that sometimes people need a push to see the truth. "It's not about me," Andrew says quietly. "It's about what you saw when you looked at me. You didn't see a man sitting and reading a book. You saw something else, something that wasn't real. And that's the problem." Karen nods, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I know. I don't want to be that person. I don't want my kids growing up with that kind of fear or ignorance." Andrew looks down at Emily and Jacob, who are watching the exchange with wide eyes. He knows they'll remember this day, even if they don't fully understand what happened. He crouches down to their level, offering them a small smile. "You guys were really brave today," he says gently. "I'm glad you're okay." Emily steps forward and hugs Andrew's leg, her small arms squeezing tightly. Andrew's heart softens at the gesture, and he pats her head gently. Jacob, still clinging to his mother, watches quietly, his eyes wide with curiosity. Karen wipes her tears, sniffling. "Thank you," she whispers. "I'm going to make sure they understand what happened today. I'm going to teach them to do better, I promise." Andrew stands up, looking at Karen with a mixture of empathy and exhaustion. He's heard promises like this before, but something about Karen's sincerity gives him hope. Maybe, just maybe, this will be a turning point for her and for her children. "You should," Andrew replies, his voice steady. "Because this kind of thing happens more often than you think. And it's not just about today, it's about the way you see the world, the way we all see it." Karen nods, her face filled with a deep sense of remorse. "I will. I'll do better." Andrew nods, offering her a small, tired smile. That's all anyone can do. With that, he turns to leave, walking toward his car. The weight of the day still hangs heavy on him, but there's a sense of closure too. He's done what he can, and now it's up to Karen to reflect on her actions and change. As Andrew reaches his car, he takes a moment to sit in the driver's seat, closing his eyes and letting out a deep breath. The day's events play out in his mind: the accusations, the lion, the children, the apology. It feels like a blur, a whirlwind of emotions and chaos that has left him drained. His phone buzzes again, and this time Andrew looks down at it. A message from David pops up. "You okay? Let me know if you want to talk." Andrew smiles slightly, grateful for his friend's support. He types a quick response: "I'm good. Just need some time to process. Thanks, man." As he starts the car, Andrew feels a sense of clarity washing over him. Today was harder than most days, but it's not the end of the world. He's faced challenges like this before, and he knows he'll face them again. But there's something different about this time. Maybe it's the fact that Karen truly seemed to understand her mistake. Or maybe it's the hope that her kids will grow up with a better understanding of the world, free from the biases that plagued their mother today. As Andrew drives away from the zoo, the sun finally dips below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The day is over, but the lessons learned will linger for a long time, for Karen, for her children, and for Andrew. And as the city lights begin to flicker on, Andrew finds a small sense of peace in the knowledge that, even in the midst of chaos and prejudice, there is always room for change, for understanding, for growth, and for hope. As Andrew drives through the city streets, the weight of the day slowly starts to lift. The familiar hum of the car and the passing streetlights bring a sense of normalcy, a welcome contrast to the chaos of the zoo. He takes a deep breath, letting the events of the day settle in his mind, feeling the exhaustion in his body, but also a strange sense of relief. The notifications on his phone keep coming, but Andrew keeps it face down in the passenger seat. He knows that the video from earlier is spreading fast, and that people are talking, some supporting him, others questioning everything. The world outside the confines of his car is still buzzing with the aftermath of the confrontation, but for now he needs a moment of peace. After a while, he pulls into the driveway of his apartment building, parking under the familiar shade of the large oak tree that towers over the lot. He sits in the car for a few moments, collecting himself before heading inside. The weight of what happened at the zoo, Karen's accusation, the near tragedy with the lion, and the emotional toll still sits heavy on his chest. As Andrew steps out of the car, his phone vibrates again, this time with a call from David. "Hey," Andrew says, answering the call as he locks his car. "You home?" David asks, his voice filled with concern. "I've been thinking about what happened all day." "Yeah, just got home," Andrew replies, walking toward his building. "It's been a lot to process." David sighs on the other end of the line. "Man, I still can't believe that Karen woman went off on you like that. But I saw her apology in the video. Do you think she meant it?" Andrew pauses, standing in front of his apartment door. He's thought about that question himself. Did Karen really mean her apology? Or was it just a reaction to being embarrassed by the way things unfolded? There's no way to know for sure, but something in her voice when she spoke to him made him think she was genuinely trying to confront her own biases. "I think she meant it," Andrew finally says. "At least I hope she did. She seemed really shaken up by the whole thing. But it's hard to tell. People say things in the heat of the moment. It's what they do after that really matters." David is quiet for a moment before speaking again. "Yeah, you're right. You handled it better than I would have, though. I don't know if I could have kept my cool like that." Andrew chuckles softly. "Trust me, it wasn't easy. But I've been in situations like that before. It's like, you get used to it, but you never really stop feeling the sting. You just learn how to manage it." "Yeah, I get that," David says, his voice heavy with empathy. "Well, listen, if you need anything, I'm here, man. Don't hesitate to reach out." "Thanks, David. I appreciate it," Andrew says, unlocking his door and stepping into his apartment. The familiar scent of his space greets him, offering a sense of comfort he didn't know he needed. "I'll talk to you later, okay?" "Yeah, take care, bro," David says before hanging up. Andrew tosses his phone onto the kitchen counter and leans against the wall, closing his eyes for a moment. The quiet of his apartment is exactly what he needs after the noise and chaos of the zoo. He kicks off his shoes and heads toward the living room, sinking into the soft cushions of his couch. For the first time all day, he feels like he can truly exhale. He grabs the remote and flicks on the TV, hoping to drown out his thoughts with some mindless entertainment. But before he can fully relax, a news bulletin flashes across the screen. Breaking news: viral zoo incident sparks national conversation on racial profiling and heroism. Andrew's stomach tightens as the anchor begins to recount the day's events. His face appears on the screen footage from the zoo that someone captured and posted online. The video shows Karen confronting him, her voice accusing and angry, followed by the terrifying moment when Andrew rushes to save her children from the lion. The news anchor continues. The video has sparked a heated debate online, with many praising Andrew, a local elementary school teacher, for his bravery in saving the children. However, the incident has also raised serious questions about racial profiling and the quick assumptions that led to the confrontation. Andrew mutes the TV, sinking deeper into the couch. He knew this was coming, but seeing it play out on the news feels surreal. His private moment at the zoo, an ordinary day that turned into something much bigger, has now become a public spectacle. People are talking about him, dissecting his actions, and turning him into a symbol for something he didn't ask for. He stares at the muted screen for a while, watching the news segment unfold in silence. The images of Karen, her children, and the lion flash across the screen, each moment replayed over and over. Andrew wonders how many people will see this and take something from it, whether they'll reflect on their own biases or just move on to the next viral story. His phone vibrates again, and this time it's a text from Ms. Dawson, the principal at the elementary school where he teaches. Saw the news. Proud of you for how you handled everything. Let me know if you need time off or anything else. We've got your back. Andrew smiles faintly. The support from his friends, colleagues, and community helps ease some of the tension in his chest. He knows that, despite the attention and the pressure, he's not alone. People who know him, who truly know him, see him for who he is, not just what happened today. He types out a quick response: thanks, Ms. Dawson. I'm good for now, just need some time to rest. Appreciate the support. Andrew turns off the TV and closes his eyes, letting the quiet wash over him. The day has been long and difficult, but as he sits in the stillness of his apartment, he feels a sense of resolution. He can't control how people see him or how the world interprets what happened today, but he can control how he moves forward. Tomorrow, the world will still be buzzing about the video, about Karen's apology, and about his actions. But for tonight, Andrew allows himself to rest, knowing that in the midst of it all, he did the right thing. He stayed true to himself, kept his cool, and saved 2 innocent children in the process. And that, he thinks to himself, is enough.